Hey guys, once again we're iFixit. If you were here yesterday, thank you again for joining us. Apparently I wasn't that boring. I'm Sam, this is Andrew.
Hey guys, I'm Andrew, the teardown engineer at iFixit.
They also told us that we're the last presentation today, so we're just going to take like 3 hours. Does that sound cool? You guys clear your schedules?
Are you all comfortable? This is a little bit more complicated than what we took apart yesterday, but we'll still try and be fast. We took out a few screws, although I've never taken this apart before in my life, so it'll be interesting.
We just did a little cooking show, disassembly, you know, like, okay, well, we fast forwarded a little bit, but now we're getting to the fun parts.
Yeah.
So iFixit.com is a free online repair manual for basically everything you can think of, and if we didn't think of that, then you can go online and make your own guide and help the next person out. We also sell parts and tools, so if you need to replace your iPhone battery or your laptop screen, then we can help you out. If it's not just by giving you instructions, then it'll be by providing parts or tools. We also tend to do the first teardowns of devices in the world. Andrew and I actually fly to Australia every year to stand in the bitter cold in Australia to get the very first iPhone, run it back to the office and take it apart, and take pictures and post them online so that you guys can see what's inside. Thereafter, we will make the repair guides for the device, and that's what we're going to be doing with this 3DR solo drone today.
Yeah, we're going to be real careful taking it apart, and then we're going to put it back together and make a set of repair guides and post them for free online on iFixit. It'll take a few months probably. We have a backlog. But I guess we'll go ahead and get started.
Sure thing.
So first thing I'm going to do is take the battery out, because if this accidentally comes on, it's going to cut off my fingers.
Yeah, kind of an interesting design choice to put the off button near the blades of death
right here. So if you want
to
to turn it off, you have to reach in like that, and they come in pretty close. It's a little scary.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, anyways. So we'll take the battery out and we'll be safe. This is a 5200 milliamp hour battery, which is what, like 5 times what's in an iPhone probably. Feels a lot heavier. Actually, more than that, because it's at 4.8 volts. So that's a much higher capacity, because the iPhone battery will be like 3.8 volts. So your watt hours will be even higher. That's great though. I'm going to go ahead and take the propellers off, because that'll make it easier to manage. Propellers on these drones are counter-rotating. That means that these two go in one direction while these two go in the other direction, and that's to prevent the whole thing from spinning around like a toilet bowl Coriolis effect. So that also means that the threads are counter-threaded, so one side is what we're used to and the other is reverse left-handed thread. This is the one that's what we're used to. Yeah,
there's actually really good technical writing and instruction going on this drone. They've got instructions here.
Yeah, like a little turn it this way to lock it, and this way to unlock, or lock it and unlock it.
And then on the arms, you've got the direction of the rotation to remove it, and also the color indication. These are the silver props, and these will be the black props over here. So that's always things we like to see, like pull here, insert tab A into tab B.
So those are gone. Now there's 4 individual DC brushless motors on this guy. There's one here, where this entire outside housing is what spins, and then the coils are stationary, and that's actually the opposite of the hoverboard that we did yesterday, which has a similar kind of motor, but then the outside is what spins around. So actually it's the exact same thing. The outside is what spins around the coils. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and take out a motor pod, and we'll see what's in there. These little guys here are the little LED pods. There are 3 big, huge, super bright, multicolor LEDs, and that way they can flash yellow if you do something wrong, or I think one side does green and the other side does red, just like an airplane.
Aircraft.
And that helps you figure out which way you're facing when you're looking at it from 400 feet below.
Also probably an FCC required thing at this point
probably,
as well.
Yeah.
Trying to get all the drone stuff regulated. This drone is kind of on par with a DJI Phantom 3 or maybe 4, depending on which specs you compare. So if you guys are familiar with that, this is going to be kind of the same general area. This one is geared more towards professional photographers who are going to want to put their own cameras inside the gimbal. So it does not come shipped with a camera like the DJI drones are starting to do, the built-in cameras. So you can see the gimbal is empty at this point, but is definitely geared for a GoPro.
I'm going to take these legs off first, because that's really annoying.
And these legs will have antennas in them, Andrew?
Yeah, 2 of them have antennas, and one has the magnetometer. And the magnetometer, wow, these are really tough screws, guys. The magnetometer, you want to put as far away from all the rotating weight, metal weight as possible. Each of these motors is going to create a little magnetic field, and the magnetometer is an electronic compass, which can easily be messed up by that. And so that actually lives, which foot is it? At the bottom of this foot right here. and we'll get that out as well. But it's like in the foot right there, and there's a, get on the screen. There's a cable in there. There you go. You're being really quick. Super on it. Thank you.
Usually I can tell you, hey, and we also have a full teardown online, but again, this is the first time we've ever seen one of these. But you can see similar teardowns. I believe we've got maybe an older DJI
we've
teardown
got
and some guides.
a full set of guides for the DJI Phantom 2.
We've also got, like I said, all the most recent flagship phones and that kind of thing. We also assign repairability scores. So at the end of a device, we will collect all the data that we gathered based on the screws and how easy it was to get into the device and how much adhesive was used, for example, and assign that device a score based on how long-lived this device will be. So if you can replace the battery, then there you go. You've doubled the lifespan, essentially, unless something else will fail. And when you can do that, then it'll be more repairable, and then you will have less electronic waste as you're throwing it away and getting a new phone. So
here's one of those Wi-Fi antennas. It just lives in the foot there with a little bit of sticky adhesive on it. These feet are pretty solidly screwed in. So now we're watching the Andrew Struggles with Screws show.
yeah, we didn't pre-loosen these ones. These are probably going to take a lot of impact as the drone lands and takes off. Kind of wondering if they put the battery pack on top to avoid too much trauma there.
Oh, that could be. Yeah, the Phantoms have the battery pack on the bottom, and maybe too many of them were landing on their batteries when their legs broke.
Phantom also has kind of like two leg bars, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like kind of
U-shaped bars
U-shaped
instead
bars,
of four
right.
individual legs.
So
All right, well, maybe we'll stop there for now, and I'll get this motor pod out the rest of the way so we can take a look at that.
So ideally, these will be individually replaceable motor components so that they come with an extra set of propellers, so okay, propellers are going to be a little bit disposable. That's nice, but it'd be really cool to be able to replace motors individually as they burn out as well.
Or I know a lot of people into this as a hobby are also really into upgrading their motors with something a little fancier, more expensive, more powerful. Maybe you'd rather have faster takeoff time at the expense of a little bit lesser battery life. That's pretty common. All right, so that's really cool. This all comes out, and it looks like I can disconnect these power leads that go to the motor board.
Little connector
And
there.
this cable here. So this board right here, it's got these LEDs on the bottom, but then on the top, we've got the 3 phases that are powering the motor, and then our DC power in for this board. So this is the ESC, electronic speed controller. Basically, it's taking in a signal from the main board, and actually it's probably sending signals back for the encoders within the motor, and then it's getting a speed signal from the main board and power from the center, telling it how fast to spin this motor and when to actually fire off well, it figures out when to fire off the 3 phases. And then the board is also handling these LEDs, which might be also what some of this power or some of these signal lines are from. So these 4 are going to be all the same type of board, except of course that these 2 motors will spin one way and these 2 will spin the other.
Which is a really important thing to remember if you're replacing an individual motor where you pulled it off from, because it's going to spin a certain way and you may end up with a drunken drone.
Right, it'll spin a certain way, and this also has that properly threaded attachment for the propeller. So I think we'll leave the other pods in for now. I probably shouldn't be resting on this gimbal, but that's okay, we'll survive. And I'm gonna try and get in a little bit further. So I think there are a few screw holes down at the bottom of the battery tray that I'll go for, but also I cheated and looked online and found some repair documentation. This is a little plastic shield that covers up the GPS antenna that I need to pry off, and there are a few screws under that. So I'm gonna pry at that with a little plastic opening tool and hopefully not break it, because it's pretty soft plastic.
So is that plastic just to allow like a pass-through for the antenna, or is there going to be some kind of like IR going on as well?
I think it's probably just for the antenna. You just don't want metal on top,
Right.
but to prevent interference. But you do want to have it nice and covered because it's pretty delicate in there. There we go. And also the GPS is usually up on the very top, just like on the Phantoms. It's in the bulge in the center, because if it's obviously it's receiving signals from above the drone. So if you've got it anywhere else, then it's going to get interference trying to read through the drone itself.
One thing we were reading up on kind of the comparisons between these two drones, the Phantom 3 actually takes advantage of the GLaSSNOS navigation system, which is kind of exciting. That'll be like a double GPS check for you, and this one does not.
Okay, just a couple of screws. I actually took most of these out already to try and save you guys the bore. Also, you may have noticed that I have this really cool magnetic mat. I just want to pitch my tools because this is my favorite tool. I've got a dry erase marker where I'm able to draw out a little map where all the screws go, and I put them all in their little spots, and they don't fall off.
Really, Andrew says that removing the screws is the boring part, but putting the screws back in is kind of like the crazy part, where you're like, okay, where did this actually come from? Those are probably just extras. We don't need those. That's fine. But with the drawings, you can kind of keep track of where you've been.
Okay.
Nice little boat.
Yeah, so this little boat here, a little bathtub, that holds the battery right there. It's got a cutout for the battery power connectors. Sorry, you're chasing me around in the sky. And then in here is going to be the GPS antenna. It looks like it's underneath these little screws. So I'm going to pull those out just to see what happens.
And it's just copper shielding there on top with
Yeah, plenty
black.
of shielding underneath to try and keep any interference from making its way up underneath the antenna. You want to draw me a little square with two circles in it for this guy?
Down here. So ordinarily, Andrew and I are going to be the teardown people. He does more of the hands, and he has the unenviable job of making everything look super easy, and oh, everything's so wonderful, and hands always look like that, definitely. And I just get to do the photoshopping, which is making them look really excellent.
Ooh, more screws underneath.
So this board is green compared to the like sexy black board on the interior of the drone.
All right, and what's that? Tau glass GPS antenna module right there. And then the actual circuitry on it right there. There's some kind of IC under a tiny little EMI shield in there. And then this is just the interconnect cable that goes from here down to the main board right there. So let's go ahead and see what we have to do to get this board out. I don't actually know. I'm thinking it has to come out from the bottom because it looks like it's a little bit too big to actually come out through this hole. So I'm going to go ahead and take off the rest of the legs and get started attacking it that way. So now we're into super unknown territory.
So I see this little guy has kind of like some slits under there. What's that about, do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah, strange.
They call that link. So maybe there's some kind of sensor that comes out through there.
Yeah, or antennas or something. So there's kind of like an exterior frame that Andrew is working on, and then if you can see this seam here, there's like plates that go on top, and then the legs are mounted on that as well.
And then as we mentioned, like you can put in your own GoPro right here. There are also 4 little rubber dampened holes there, and that's for mounting a gimbal, and that's if you want to have a bit more fancy camera control. Then you can do a 1 or 2 or 3 axis gimbal that'll hold your camera, and that can actually be controlled by the onboard computer in this guy. So this one, as it's shipped, just comes with a fixed camera mount.
Is this smartphone controlled? They've got like a pretty fancy remote, but does it just have the smartphone caddy?
Yeah, because this actually has Wi-Fi streaming of your video of whatever the GoPro is seeing. You can see on your screen. That's a tiny Philips. I'm going to need a smaller driver.
Which, one of the great things about drones these days is with enough Wi-Fi streaming and memory and like cloud servers and the connections therein, You can actually save your footage, so if your drone ends up falling into a volcano, for example, you can maintain that footage even though you can't actually reclaim the drone itself.
So I just pulled the magnetometer cable out, and that's basically that chip that's underneath this heat shrink, most likely. So this little cable just runs there and then is mounted on the foot like that. So there's one more foot down, and oh, it kept its screw. All right, 1 foot left, and then we'll hopefully be able to get a little further inside.
And hopefully you guys will be able to come up and take a peek at these components once we're done talking. We'll also open the floor to questions as well. If you've got questions about this guy or about any of our other teardowns or guides or anything. At this point, we're just trying to get as far as we can.
Okay, one last screw, and then this guy also has a Wi-Fi antenna hidden in its leg. Pull that out too. All right, that was probably helpful. I'm going to draw another little map and take out a few more screws and see what happens.
So far it's looking like pretty customizable, pretty modular, allowing for other people to put new things in there, which is always really nice. DJI tends to be more of the complete kit where it's like, okay, just plug and play, set to go. But for people who are doing commercial filming, that may not be enough.
I think these are captive screws, which probably means this is meant for you to open up. And this is probably what you need to take off to install a gimbal.
And these are all standard Phillips screws so far, right?
Yeah.
Phillips screws are super great. Everyone has like a number 2 in their kitchen drawer. Really easy to get into a device if it's strictly Phillips screws. Some companies like to prevent the user from getting inside their device by specifically creating new screws or using very obscure screws.
So here's the fixed gimbal, and you can see we've got these little rubber cushions that are going to dampen all the vibrations, because these things, these drones have quite a bit of power in their propellers. They shake quite a bit, pretty small vibrations. And so just having these little rubber pads on the gimbal mount will hopefully deaden that and help your GoPro get good footage. And then obviously, like, you can take this out, and really easily you can just remove this one and slap in your, slap in your own fancy gimbal that's not just fixed. So that's out, and let's see, did that expose anything else? There's this USB cable that's good for connecting to your GoPro. That's handy, but not exactly what we want. So I'm going to keep digging, and I guess from the other side,
yeah, it looks like the bottoms of screws.
I'm going to pull off this little pad just because it's suspicious.
Yeah, if you're ever like trying to pull something apart and it's sticking and you're like, there's probably a screw under there, always check under the stickers. It's like a really good one for like PCs especially. It'll be under like the little rubber feet or under like the warranty sticker.
So that exposed a little connector, probably for debugging or maybe for updating the firmware. Although usually these guys have a USB port, so maybe that's something that 3DR uses themselves.
They do like bug report, kind of like you can submit something and then if something happens to your drone, then they can help you out.
Yeah, apparently if your drone crashes, you can automatically send a little complaint from the mobile app along with the flight telemetry, and they may decide to replace your drone for free, maybe.
If they say that, okay, yes, it was our software that ended up tripping up your drone and it wasn't because you flew it into a tree, what were you doing?
I'm running out of screws, but there is a seam along the side here. So I'm going to go ahead and take out the rest of the motor pods, just because maybe that'll help.
Do you think we should take some questions?
Sure. If anybody has any burning questions right now, we can try and multitask.
Yep. We are about 10 minutes away from our scheduled time, but we're just going to keep going until people like chase us off stage. So if you guys have any questions, then, oh yes, you in the back. I'm sorry.
We've got the mic coming to the
yeah,
back.
sorry. 1 second. Brief moment. And then I'll repeat it for the audience. Something about the drone isn't warm, maybe.
There you go. Well, I just noticed the drone is not waterproof, so there's no flying in the rain and no dropping it into a swimming pool.
Yeah,
Yep, that's
generally,
true.
yeah. I think the Lily drone is trying to fill that gap. It's a drone that can actually take off from the water if it lands in the water, and it's completely enclosed. Generally, waterproofing and modularity and repairability are going to be in direct conflict with each other. So if you want them to be able to replace the camera gimbal and if you want them to be able to replace the motors, then you either have to go crazy with gaskets and like some kind of crazy case, or you have to fill it with glue, which is the easier way to do it. So in this instance, okay, not super waterproof, but you are going to be able to get really granular in there and put everything you want in there. Another question?
Yeah. How do two drones communicate with each other? Because if the two drones are in the air, will they communicate with each other by not crashing with each other?
They communicate by you standing next to the other guy and going, hey, stop that! I'm flying over here. As far as I'm aware, there's not a lot of inter-drone networking, and sometimes it's like most of the smaller drones will only have sensors to view the ground and not to view in front of them. So it's really reliant on the user. And that may be changing. The FCC is definitely trying to get into like drone registration and regulation and that kind of thing. But correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that there's any like drone-to-drone
So there is a big chance that they might crash each other, right?
Certainly, yeah. They're not super common. Like I've only ever really seen one at a time, but they do actually do like drone battles. Like there's like drone Thunderdome that happens. So you should look it up and at least you see what happens when they hit each other.
Yeah, I have another question. So, on that particular model, what's the payload for that?
I'm not sure how much this can carry.
Don't know. We didn't make it. We're just taking it apart.
Yeah, this is like we were given this drone and we like briefly looked at the product page and a comparison to. On an ordinary teardown, we would spend more time actually researching the device, but this is kind of just like a hey, showing you guys what's inside. We're not able to do like chip identification at this time. But that's an ordinary teardown on iFixit would have all of that information built in for you.
I will say though that this does have a few mounting screw holes in the bottom, and it says accessory bay. So maybe you can mount like a little claw on there or something if you're feeling super evil scientist guy.
And it obviously does support other cameras than just a GoPro, so probably you can go heavier than that as well.
So how much does a drone cost in retail?
So this one, I think, costs about $1,000. The DJI costs $1,000 as well, but comes with a camera. So this one is just $1,000 for the drone. Then you have to get the GoPro or whatever in addition to that. But I think it said $1,000. Anyone else?
We're gonna keep trying. I really want to get this board out. And sometimes that's just what our teardowns are like.
Yeah, sometimes it's really frustrating to get super far and then to hit a wall and kind of not know what to do. When we tore down the Apple Watch in Australia, I tell this story all the time, so I'm sorry if you've heard it before. But they have very tiny tri-wing screws in there. That's like a 3-pointed screw. And none of our tri-wings could fit it. It was too small. So we took a diamond file and actually filed down the end of the screwdriver to get farther into it. And we were watching the live blog of another company in Sydney. We were in Melbourne. And they got stuck by that screw and they said, okay, check back later. And they still haven't updated. So. We actually have some repair guides on the Apple Watch, which is surprising. You can replace like the display and the battery.
Yeah,
but
not
like,
too much.
good luck.
All right. I'm gonna pull all these cables in. That's gonna help, I promise. So this main board that I'm really hoping to get at is pretty much, whoa, here we go, responsible for everything. All of the smarts are on the bottom here, and then all the power distribution is through these big wires to each of the motors, and the power in goes into this board as well. So it handles all the heavy power, all the motor control, well, not the motor control, but the motor speed requests. And then there's all sorts of powerful, like, semi-autonomous modes that this thing can do, where you can tell it to fly smoothly between 2 points in space while recording a super sick shot of you doing a backflip on a dirt bike or something like that.
Or to record the Austin bats. I don't know if you guys saw the bats yet. It's really cool. At sunset, they're like, whoa, my gosh. But there was a drone out there a little bit before the bats actually came out, which is probably smart. I mean, I would be a little bit afraid for the bats. They stay a lot lower than a drone would, I guess, but really pretty skyline anyway, so good drone shots in Austin.
It's loose. It's like a loose tooth.
It's kind of like trying to shake like a penny out of a piggy bank. Like,
yeah.
It's there and you know it got in.
There are a few extra little random screws that might help. Oh, now it's loose.
So now we just have to tilt it enough that it can kind of poke out.
Disconnect this last guy. Oh, that's another one of those weird connectors.
Oh yeah, we found a connector where you have to pull the latch out to pull it up instead of pushing the latch in to pull it up.
The opposite.
It's always fun. Oh, the other way around.
Yeah.
Lots of different kinds of connectors in here. But even on the inside, no weird screws. So far, we haven't really encountered any adhesive, have we?
Just the stickers covering the antennas on the legs. One last cable getting in my way. Maybe we'll come this way. It helps to have skinny fingers.
Got nails if you need them.
No, nails are bad.
There we go. Nice. We're caught up on that zip tie a little.
On a cable. All right, so it's mostly out. The only thing that's holding it back now is, if you remember that connector that we found on the bottom, there's a big fat ribbon cable that leads down to that. So I'm just gonna pull that board out really quick so that we can get a look at this guy.
Oh yeah, there's some
free of the frame.
big guys on there. And where's this guy here?
I haven't been keeping good track of my screws.
I haven't either. I can't see them well from this angle.
And we've got one more Wi-Fi antenna. There we go. Okay. Spare parts. That's
Didn't
fine.
need that one.
That's fine. We don't need this. We're going to commit this to memory and remember how it all goes back together.
This is why we usually take photos.
Yeah. All right. Well, we found the more exciting little computer. This is kind of like Raspberry Pi level going on right here. There's a SD card that's glued in place, so you can't take that out. That's probably just a little reset switch. This is probably the IMU. This is like a big magical sealed box. That's probably the fancy inertial measurement unit. This is a speaker for yelling at you when you have your fingers in the props. We can go ahead and take this board off and see what's inside. And not too much else going on here except for the spaghetti wires.
We'll just get the board off and then maybe invite people up to start poking at stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I'm pulling the standoffs with it. There's a super crazy proprietary connect. Oh, that's USB. And there's something still connected. Looks like it's just straight down. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so that's obviously going to be your wireless card right there. It almost looks like a PCI plug-in laptop wireless card, but then it's got these Wi-Fi antennas coming off of it, which kind of makes sense because if you're going to be streaming video from a GoPro, you need some serious bandwidth. So this is an actual legit wireless card. I would 3D Robotics, there you go. A lot of stuff branded by them on here. And we'll try and do some identification maybe after the show. But I think that's about it. We've got the thing fully apart. Is there anything that I missed while I'm still mic'd up that you guys want to see a little more in detail? Did anybody work on this device in any way, or like work on something that's inside of it?
You can just like.
Or maybe you can't say. That's fine. Don't say. I won't look. But I think we're about done, unless there are any questions that you guys want to grab the mic and ask for everyone. Otherwise.
All right. We'll switch our mics off, and you guys can come up at the table, and we won't yell at you anymore. We can just talk like people. How's that sound?
Cool.
All right.
Thanks a lot. And we'll be here again at 4:30 tomorrow for an iPhone teardown, and we'll be at a booth in the IoT World of IoT Maker Market all day tomorrow.
All right.
So thanks a
very
lot, guys.
much.